All right, this is the final video we're going to be doing for the Reformation. This should be able to finish off your Reformation notes in preparation for the quiz you'll be taking next week, or whenever I make it available in Kansas. So the Counter-Reformation, just to get started in here. Yes, it's a nice Star Wars reference, but it also is, in a way, makes it work. So basically, with the Reformation starting in and things going pretty crazy, with Protestants and different forms of Protestants everywhere, the Catholic Church was like, okay, we need to do something. How are we going to deal with this? We can't just normally squash things like we used to. That's kind of out of the question at this moment. So the Pope at this point, it's not Pope Leo anymore, it's Pope Paul III. He calls together what is called the Council of Trent. This council lasts for something like a decade almost, where all the major Catholic leaders, not just say Catholic priests and cardinals and bishops and archbishops and whatnot, but you also get a lot of the political leaders, like the King of Spain and stuff like that, and, different princes and leaders around Europe that still firmly believe in Catholicism. They all gather together to talk about what are we going to do about this. And one of the funny things is, just an overall thing about this, is they actually do decide to make a lot of changes here. In fact, they make a lot of the changes that a lot of the reformers like John Wycliffe were calling for way back when. He's like, you know what, maybe we shouldn't be as corrupt as we used to do. We need to make sure we're better going forward. It's because of the sins of man, or the men within the church, that people are breaking away. And if we stop that can solve a lot of problems right off the bat. And again, there's a lot of things you could put in here if you want to really get into it, as far as like corruption, bad stuff happening, things like that. But for the most part, things get better in the Catholic Church moving forward from the Council of Trent. Hence why we call the whole unit the Reformation instead of just the Protestant Reformation. It starts as a Protestant Reformation, but the Catholic Church does reform itself. Now, within the Council of Trent, though, and how they're going to deal with how they're going to stop the Protestants, and I've listed here 4 main things that they did. And make sure you get these in your notes. First off, no compromising with Protestants, meaning that you can't go and say, well, I guess you're right here. It's like, no. You need to be Catholic. You cannot believe what you're believing in. There's no ins and outs about it. Second, they firmly reject Martin Luther's idea of justification by faith, and even more the overall Protestant idea of individual faith. You cannot just have your own personal religion. You need to belong to the official Church of God that Jesus Christ set up with the Apostle Peter way back when. So just firmly reject that. The church is necessary. You can't have your own personal religion, organized or not. So third, the reestablishment of the Roman Inquisition. If you guys have ever heard of the Inquisition before, let's just say there's not much good to say about the Inquisition. You can read stuff out there about how it's misunderstood and things like that, but just on a normal, basic level, the Inquisition was the idea of hunting down heretics and getting rid of them out of the church. Essentially, the Inquisition is what was called upon to get rid of guys like John Huss and Wycliffe and stuff like that. But in this case, now it's firmly there to basically stamp out the Protestants where you can. And this is where actually a lot of kingdoms, especially the Spanish, were given more leniency on what they did to get rid of them. It does get out of hand quite a bit. I'll talk a little bit about that in another slide here. The fourth thing is the adoption of the Jesuits. Now, the Jesuits is an order of essentially Catholic monks, missionaries, however you want to call it, or call them, that were around before the Reformation started, but they kind of make it their sole duty to combat Protestantism. And they would Bible bash with Protestants, and they actually were quite successful in reconverting people back. And they also took it upon them to not just combat Protestants, but also to spread Catholicism, the Christian religion, through the Catholic Church to the rest of the world as best they could. Now, combine that with the age of exploration that's going on at exactly this point in the early 1500s. The Catholic Church, they're one of the main instruments in why the Catholic Church is so huge today, just overwhelmingly larger than every other Christian church out there. Is they pretty much got everywhere first, like here in the Americas, Asia, Africa, and whatnot. Okay. Now, and this is just going a little bit more into the Jesuit order. I think I just explained a bit of this actually. So go ahead if you'd like to. I'm not going to re-explain it right now, just for the purposes of time. You can pause it if you'd like to get the notes down. But this is essentially talking about what the Jesuits do. But moving on. Now, the Inquisition. I shouldn't say two ways of looking at the Inquisition. The normal Inquisition, which is called the Roman Inquisition, instituted by the Roman Catholic Church in Rome, Italy today, or the Vatican City today. Well, this isn't talking about it's going today, but that's where it is. They would try Protestants as witches. Yes, they would burn some at the stake, or if they wouldn't confess, torture was a normal method. The Spanish Inquisition upped this to the nth degree type thing. If you're looking at the side there, I have a nice video of a lot of devices they use. I don't have it to upload right now, I'm sorry. But you're looking at a spiked rack where people would be rolled across that back and forth. It was a nasty machine. And in other cases, they would tie people into positions where they would just stretch them to the point where they would rip in half, if they didn't confess in time. Just some nasty stuff to essentially just get people to come back. These methods were, I guess you could say, somewhat effective in keeping people in a state of fear, but definitely, historically speaking, now we look back on it as like, this is an awful thing to do. You don't do this to get people to believe in what you think they should believe. Anyways, I could go into a lot more stories. Again, those stories might be held for more of what we do during our open office hours. I invite you to look up more on the Spanish Inquisition. I usually share stories out of some books I have and things like that in class. But again, I invite you to look things up on your own. Or if you want to, look up a nice video through Monty Python that they do on the Spanish Inquisition. That's a bit comical. Although in the comedy of it, you can definitely see kind of the nastiness of it that they're making fun of. The nastiness of the actual Spanish Inquisition, that is. Anyways, I'm going to end this video here. This does finish the Reformation. And good luck on the quiz when you guys take it.